Hey, what is happening everyone? Welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be reviewing the Chuwi Hi9 tablet. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. First of all, let's go ahead and take a look at the box. So inside, we will get pretty much nothing. You get this little piece that will cover your screen, and a little bag, some instructions that nobody reads. You'll get a very rubbery micro USB charging cable, as well as a European charging adapter. That runs at 5 volts, 3 amps, which is pretty impressive. Except I cannot use it here in Canada because it's European. Anyways, here is the tablet itself. It has a pretty nice looking 8.4-inch display that runs at 2560 by 1600, and yes, it is IPS. And overall, it is Chuwi, of course, so that's why it has a high-resolution display. And of course, with a high-resolution display, it will hinder the performance when playing around with this tablet. But overall, it's actually pretty good when watching videos on it, which is the main thing that I would recommend doing on a tablet like this, or browsing memes. Either way, let's take a deeper look. So in front we got a camera right here, camera in the back. Of course, we're not going to review it because cameras are always pretty bad. We get a backfiring speaker, a mono one right here. Simple rubberized texture in the back with some branding and some information right over here. On the top here, we got a micro SD card slot, a headphone jack, and the micro USB charging port. And on the right side, you'll get your volume rocker and the power button. As for the specs, it's got an MTK for a CPU, a PowerVR for a GPU, 4GB of DDR3 RAM, and 64GB of eMMC storage. It does have dual band AC Wi-Fi and Bluetooth 4.0, and of course, it is running Android 7.0. Would have been nice if it was running 7.1, but this will do. And we'll talk more about the battery life in just a bit. So what is it like to be holding this thing? Well, it does feel pretty nice, and there are no hard edges anywhere. The only thing that you'll notice when picking this thing up and trying to move it, that it does creak when you move it, because the back panel isn't very nicely secured. In fact, you can actually pop the panel off without much force needed, just like so. So here's the CPU and the GPU. It's got a little heatsink right here, and some kind of piece that is supposed to heatsink to this other thermal piece right here. That's the front camera, that's the back camera, that's the SD card slot, the headphone jack, the micro USB charging port, and the 5000 mAh battery. The mono speaker is right down here. There's a microphone right over here, and if you want, you can actually throw in some thermal pads around this area to keep the back padding from slipping around, and it will probably also help with some thermals. So let's just go ahead and pop that back on. Anyways, in the front we got a pre-installed screen protector that is actually installed pretty nicely, I gotta say. It's not often that you get a properly installed screen protector. That said, this screen protector is actually larger, just a tiny bit larger than the actual screen, but it could also be that the screen kind of curves around the edges. So you can see that there's actually a white line all around this thing. Now, speaking of a white line, let's actually take a look at the display here. So the viewing angles are pretty decent, and overall they don't wash out much. In fact, they actually stay relatively the same. It just dims just a tiny bit. But if you take a look at the corners here, you can see when you're looking at this perspective, you'll see some white lines appearing around the edges of the display. And it goes for pretty much all the edges around the display. It's not just one side. It happens to all of them. So that's just something to keep in mind. Honestly, it didn't bother me much, and it's just there. That said, this tablet is currently going for around $197, pretty much $200. So is it worth it? Well, let's take a look at the software. So overall for the software, it does run, and overall you can get things done on it. It didn't have much issues other than running Antutu benchmark, which ended up in a glitchy mess. But let's go ahead and take a look at Geekbench and see what kind of score that we got here. Let's go ahead and get started by taking a look at the multi-core performance. So if you go ahead and scroll down, the performance is similar to the Galaxy Note 4. As for the single core performance, if we go ahead and scroll down, it's about the same as a Samsung Note 7, which is pretty interesting, but that's about it. Now, if we go ahead and take a look at the compute benchmark and take a look at that, we got a score of 2,327, and it sits somewhere between the Galaxy S6 and the Huawei Nexus 6P. Now, of course, the performance would have been better if this display was a 1080p panel or a 1200p panel, but that is that. So this panel right here is a 16 by 10, I believe. So when watching a video, you will have some letterboxing, which you can see that we are getting some letterboxing around the edges. You get about a centimeter of letterboxing on the top and the bottom, which is actually not that bad. 1080p 60fps videos do play pretty nicely, and there's no problems right here. As for other resolution, we can do 1440p thanks to the panel, and you can see that right here, it doesn't have any problems running that as well. And the same goes for 1440p 60fps. It plays it very well, without any hiccups, without any problems. It runs it like a champ, which is pretty nice if you just want to watch videos. Now, speaking of videos, the speakers on here, they're actually pretty acceptable, and I consider them to be pretty good when it comes to tablet speakers, since most of them are pretty bad. So here's a quick audio sample of what these speakers sound like.
and million planets in the universe that we're the only ones with life.
No. But I'm guessing we're the only ones who like shoving things through our back doors.
It's usually worst in the morning, especially if I've slept on my arm. If I sleep on my back or with my arms out, I'm usually okay.
So your arm only hurts after you lie on top of it all night?
Yeah.
Well, have you thought about, I don't know, not doing that?
Got it.
Start counting. How many?
26.
Okay. Either you suck at math, or you're gonna die in 2 seconds. You suck at math.
Now, since we are running Android 7.0, we can actually do split screen multitasking. So to do that, you can simply hold down the recent app button and it will open up split screen. And if you don't already have another app open, you can go ahead and click the home button and it will open up and it will ask you what app you want to launch after. And just like that, you can actually open up 2 apps and just pretty much enjoy a video and browse some memes or Reddit or a document or whatever you want at the same time, which is pretty awesome. And with that, I actually haven't had any issues with the split screen mode. Now let's go ahead and talk about the interface and overall user experience. So in my experience, although things are pretty smooth, I did find it to be kind of hesitant to work. So what I mean by that is I feel like there's actually a slight delay when moving around with this tablet. It could be that the touchscreen is just a tiny bit unresponsive, but overall I just find the interface to be, it doesn't really lag or hang. It's that the scrolling speed is a bit too slow for me. It's not very responsive, it's not very quick, it just doesn't feel as snappy and quick as I want. But at least the tablet here is stable and it does work fairly well. Now if you're wondering, yes, it does run games, and you can run Asphalt, and you can run other games. So you can see that the game runs pretty well and overall very smooth, especially on the Tokyo map, which is I find to be kind of heavy. Again, it is running on medium settings, and you can definitely have an enjoyable time with this. Now, one thing you're going to notice when playing games like these, you will actually feel it kind of get warm on the back here. It does get pretty warm, but not to the point where you want to take your hands off of it. It's not too bad. Now, of course, if it can run Asphalt, then it can run pretty much every other game for the most part. So here's Skyforce Reloaded. And here you can take a look at the delay between moving my thumb and the screen. Now, the game does add some delay to the movement of the ship, but you can play this game on your phone or whatever, and you can get a feel of what it's like. Now, with a tablet like this and having on-screen buttons, for example, here's what I mean by it being sluggish. It sometimes gets pretty annoying. It just doesn't want to go. It doesn't lag, it's just very unresponsive in some cases. So again, on top of the delayed response of the digitizer, it does add to the unresponsive experience. Now by default it had some kind of launcher, which looks like a stock launcher, but here I installed Nova Launcher because I do find it to be much better and more responsive, and overall it does look pretty nice. So that is something I totally recommend doing. Also, change the notification sounds or disable them completely because it does have that pretty annoying pixel dust notification sound that sounds terrible on pretty much any speaker that you play on. And no, if you're wondering, it does not have GPS. Now you're probably wondering, how is the battery life? Well, let me tell you. I actually got 4 hours and 45 minutes playing a 1080p video at full brightness until the battery ran out on loop. And overall it was pretty impressive for a tablet like this, which I think is a pretty good battery life, and this tablet does get pretty bright, which is really nice. As for charging time, it takes 2.5 hours to charge from 0%, which is, again, pretty decent. So with all that being said, do I recommend this tablet? Well, let's first take a look at the pros and cons. So first, for pros, the display is pretty nice. It has vibrant colors, it does get pretty bright, and overall it's pretty nice for watching video. The speakers are pretty decent, and they are good enough for YouTube videos. They're not spectacular, but they're still good enough. It's not too bad to the point where you have to use headphones. The tablet itself does have pretty nice performance that is kind of hindered by the digitizer. Battery life is pretty good, charging time is pretty decent, and it does have dual band Wi-Fi. It's got 4GB of RAM and 64GB of eMMC storage that is also expandable with an SD card. As for the cons, as we have mentioned before, it does get warm pretty quickly, and overall the software here, although again it has a performance, it's kind of unresponsive, and for the price of around $200, even when it's on sale, it's not actually all that worth it. In fact, if you're looking for something that is way more polished and has the performance and that is running Android 7.1, not 7.0, with a better build quality and nicer brand name, and yes, with better specs and a better camera, then I would recommend the Lenovo Xiaoshin TB tablet, which we might review somewhere in the future. It's very similar to the Tab 3 and the Tab 4 that we have reviewed previously, and it is priced at around $261. Now, if you don't care about the split screen mode and you just want a responsive tablet for the price point, then I would say go for the Tab 3, which we have reviewed previously, that is currently going around for $150. So with that, I would actually think that this tablet should have been around $160 or so maximum, because at the current price point that it is at, and the performance that it provides, it's not really all that good. There's always better options, and definitely Lenovo has the better option, and it also comes with a fingerprint scanner and just overall a much better tablet for the money. So again, I'll leave links for all those tablets in the description below, including this one, if you want to take a look at them, compare the prices and the specs. For $150, get the Tab 3, but if you want Android 7.1 with the split screen mode, then get the Xiaoshin TB tablet. And if you're wondering, here's what the Lenovo tablets look like. This is the Tab 3, and this is the Tab 4, and they are both awesome tablets for the money. And that is all. So thank you all for watching. Hope you have enjoyed this video and found it helpful. If you did, hit the like button and subscribe for content like this, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care, everyone.